At the same time, we're looking at currently building a completely green data center that would use renewable energy only. And that obviously would have a huge impact for every customer who would take that, because you could basically subsidize in terms of carbon credits. So from our point of view, again, the technology is there now, and there's obviously the need from a customer point of view to facilitate the carbon footprint reduction. Data centers are a great way to do that.
Finally, I'd just like to talk about how cloud affects the architecture of the data center and your application. If you look around a typical physical legacy data center, you'll find it full of specialized hardware appliances to do load balancing or firewalling or filtering of various types, many of which are very underutilized and very inefficient in their power consumption. In the cloud, you can't deploy those sorts of devices. Everything has to be deployed as software on a virtual platform. And some of our customers have done tests comparing a virtual software load balancer against a hardware device and seen reductions in power consumption for the workload going from maybe 1/4 of a kilowatt for a hardware load balancer to amortizing the cost of running a virtual appliance across a slice of hardware in the order of 10, 20, 30 watts. So there are big power savings as well in deploying the same workload in a cloud environment compared to a physical environment, or indeed just taking a cloud approach in your physical data center.
Yes, Mr. Bonfa, is a general question, I think, for all of you. Particularly, I think I was interested on the concept of code generation of idea from IBM. My question is, do you have some best practice in relation of let's say, monitoring and evaluation at the same time? This means doing not just data collection and monitoring, but also bring intelligence into the clouding. And therefore, this means it's quite useful for linking the operation with the strategical, let's say, vision. Thank you.
So I'll start again. So if I understood the question correctly, we're looking at analysing and optimising data in near real time, and then providing real insight off the back of that data that changes either business decisions or such like. So I think that is certainly for us as a business in IBM, this is core to our own research strategy that we have. We're investing in labs in Ireland, actually, which is going to look at big data as one of the big areas. One of the best examples that I connect with is in some of our police analytics and crime analytics we've done in New York and in Memphis, which is where you've got real-time crime data. In some cases, actually, bizarrely in Memphis, they connect real-time crime data also with weather data. And the reason for doing that is they can then get a sense of where the criminals are actually going to be hanging out, either under the subways because it's raining or in the parks because it's sunny. And they can actually then connect with their frontline services, with their back office services, to get the right amount of police with the right skills, with the right weapons, to the right crime at the right time. So certainly in Memphis, it's quite a well-published example available on the web, and also in New York, great examples. We also, and this connects loosely with some of the environmental edge to the previous question, we also have connected this data in real time, supporting after the tsunami, and also we apply it very much to weather analytics. We have something in the US that we call Deep Thunder. And Deep Thunder is where we have really advanced analytics around weather, so that we can actually support the movement of people at the right time, depending on the environmental impact of bad weather fronts. So for us, in the work we do with defence, or in public security, or in terrorism, or in border control, or in policing, we absolutely apply cloud-enabled handling of data in near real time or in real time to provide either operating insight for the business or frontline insight that actually affects public safety, health, etc. So for us, it's actually, I find it personally one of the most exciting areas, and cloud is a real enabler for it. So thank you for the question.
Quite interesting as well, if we talk about the different areas of kind of cloud computing, we obviously got the applications and the platform. I think from a platform perspective, we talk about storage and compute. And I think we'd argue in Google, there's no point doing storage for storage's sake. Make sure that the data you're using is being put for good use. Within a Google perspective, we often talk about some of the other underlying capabilities that we have, such as the prediction API. I certainly see more and more companies like Google bringing out some of their core services that they use to operate their business and exposing that to the end user, to you as customers. When I last spoke in March here, it was very much in that thread around some of the core services that we will allow organizations to start to use to analyze these massive data sets and apply those to specific business situations. And again, in the same thread around actual end abilities, if you think about work that we've done with Google Earth, and Google Maps, from a Google Earth perspective, it's actually in effect using a mashup of data and visualizing that information. And again, just like from an IBM story, there are a number of different units, whether it's kind of police, fire departments, that number crunch massive data sets, use different content delivery applications, including Google Earth, and actually use that in frontline services, which are actually adding value to people. And I think the whole platform compute space is something that you can utilize because of the raw capacity and the processing power that big organizations can bring. You would have to have a room full of servers to do that data set analysis. You can rent that from us for a very short space of time, get the analysis done, derive the value, and turn it off.
So real-life example that we have as a business, we work quite closely with an American document management system provider, NetDocuments. Now in the US, they've got about 80,000 end users hanging off their web-based system. Now they've just launched in the UK, and they're basically holding that within our environment, our platform, and it's completely and only cloud-based. So the end user customers won't have any local system to assist in the collaboration. Everything is basically hosted in the cloud. And their key driver is collaboration between different law firms, and their clients, where they can invite them for a collaboration session, and the fact that data is always accessible, is ready there 24/7 and protected 24/7 across 2 data centers, because they obviously can't afford any kind of downtime whatsoever, since they've got customers virtually connecting to from all over the world and end users from all over the world. So therefore there is no allowed downtime, and a cloud-based system is the best one for them.
Sure. A different application of monitoring and analysis and action comes in deploying applications on the cloud themselves. And for example, Amazon's Elastic Load Balancer or Zeus or RightScale's platforms are able to monitor the service level that applications give and then scale the resources those applications use up and down in order to ensure that they deliver the desired service level, but at the minimum amount of resources used, the minimum number of virtual machines, the minimum amount of memory. So that's another interesting example of how within a cloud, people are using monitoring and automation to make intelligent business decisions. And there's an emerging number of examples where organizations are deploying applications across multiple different clouds and routing traffic to give their end users the best degree of experience, global load balancing. And I'm sure it won't be long before organizations start routing traffic also in order to minimize the cost of delivering the application. Where spot prices are lower in one cloud than another, then monitoring and understanding how users are accessing applications means you can make sensible, automated business decisions about where you route traffic and where you use resources.
No, I think just in closing, I think this is a really, really interesting question. Just so for internal operating insight, exactly as you've said about your workloads, it's key. For external, connecting with your frontline, it's key. What we see, and the way retail use it with some of the commerce analytics that's applied to brand and to move brands in ways that we don't even know, but these companies are working with these types of tools in the cloud as we speak. And so I think that this is real, it's happening in transportation, it's happening across the sectors, in banking, in retail, etc., both for internal, the organisation, and for frontline services. So it's there, it's happening, and the sooner, I suppose, we all get onto it and connect together, I think the better.
you. My name's Gary Lashko. I work in the charity sector, and I was struck earlier by how important this could be to some of the smaller enterprises around the country to bring them into the cloud. But I did wonder whether or not there may be a barrier there in terms of some of the very large organisations like Google, Microsoft, IBM, whether or not you would be flexible enough in your SMAs to allow for the smaller businesses to use their own kind of very, very specialised kind of software databases, etc. Whether or not the contracts that they would have to get into would allow both those to be used as well as the platforms and applications that you were able to offer, because obviously SMEs form a huge part of the economy.
I think if I start, because I'm sure this is something that we all really connect with. I think for us, the smaller, medium-sized enterprises, the smaller, the volume, the more fragmented businesses, if you like, they are. It goes back to the question that was raised at the beginning. It's not an easy space. Certainly for an organisation like ourselves, it's not an easy space. So you know that. For ourselves, from a cloud perspective, cloud is a real enabler. What we've done, we have a couple of examples. Interestingly enough, not yet in the UK, although we know that policy and the drive is towards the increasing encouragement for small and medium-sized enterprises to be a core part of certainly any public sector deals. So for us, what we've done, and it comes mostly with public sector connectivity with the club clouds I was talking about. We have an example in Wuxi in China and also in municipal shared services in New York, where the fundamental concept of the club there was that you had an authority that was acting as, if you like, a super consumer that could act as an interface to a big organisation like ourselves or others. But the service was there to be provided to small and medium-sized enterprises. The reason it's a challenge from a technology perspective is the very high multi-tenancy. And I think that one of the things that we found is that we shouldn't underestimate the cost and charge model and recovery model when you're dealing with small and medium-sized enterprises. It's not just the service level agreement that you're asking about, but it's also who earns what, who charges what, and who gets recovery at what stage, and also critically, who owns what IP along the value chain. So yes, we're seeing it happening. Yes, we see it as critical. It's painful. But what we look for, and I was saying this over lunch with people that I was with, that we look for pioneering organisations who are willing to champion that type of club cloud that can serve small and medium-sized enterprises in a different way, because it's a critical area for us as a corporation to support.
I think having come from medium-sized business and moving to cloud services from now one of my competitors, switch that around. Traditionally, small, medium-sized operations, whether they're public sector, private sector, charitable, whatever, haven't been able to compete with large organisations because large organisations have had the clout behind them to purchase what we describe as enterprise-level software and services. In the cloud world, where you have software as a service, platform as a service, even down to the infrastructure as a service, but my gut feel is that might be the stepping stone into the new world so we can take legacy there. The playing field is levelled because everybody now theoretically has access to the same services because you don't need capital investment to be able to get into it. But what's more interesting is that actually that means that small businesses who are able to take quick decisions, unlike large organisations who can't, suddenly have advantage. And I think that this is going to be the really profound part of what goes on in the next few years, is that all of a sudden, small businesses are able to operate at a size and scale that big organisations can't. It was brought home to me, there was a guy I saw from Hitachi Consulting at a CIO event last year, and he talked about an exercise that they did where they gave £1,000 to a group of board directors in a training exercise and told them to set up a company for real. And with £1,000 easily, with change for beers afterwards, you can set up all that you need to run a company in a matter of minutes. That's an incredibly profound change. And so